Hello, thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the Schusterian Logic podcast. Today I'm taking a community question from Michael Tadros. So he reached out to me specifically about how to get noticed by, well, specifically IBM, but in general, like the idea of how do I get to know big companies, how do I get them to notice me, what can I do about that? So I figured that would be a great topic for the community to hear about, for us to discuss. So the message from Michael. Greetings, my name is Michael Tadros. First, I would like to thank you for connecting. I'm actually writing in order to ask about the effective way to apply to IBM and get my resume noticed. I was searching for open positions and got interested in some positions on the LinkedIn job page. I have an experienced background in various coding platforms like data science, software development, security. I would like to ask how to apply and also the perfect way to apply my resume in order to get noticed. Thanks and regards. So, Michael, thank you very much for the question. When I get stuff like this, I find that negative advice, what not to do, can be more informative than positive advice because again, you're often asking for like how your specific circumstance might get noticed in a separate way, but there are general patterns that you're wasting your time if you're going this direction. So let me start off first. What will not get you noticed by a big mega corporation to go through? And these are things I've seen people do or I've heard them talk about, and really it's just not super effective. First off, failing to have a resume with the key skills required for the job you were either applying to or the department you're going through here. So I am not talking about resumes that are light on experience, but are in the right realm, right? And I'm not even talking about levels of experience. I tell people moving out of boot camps with a professional background to apply to mid-level positions. That is the right place for them. Their experience can make up for it. They're shallow, but they have a great talent stack to go up, to combine with it. So that's a good direction to go into. No, I'm saying someone with a data science background or a UX background who then goes and applies to a full stack developer position, or somebody who has a background in security all of a sudden trying to get a DevOps role when they have none of the prerequisite skills, none of the things that are going here. I'm talking about total mismatch. Like it's almost like they accidentally applied. Because again, I am for the methodology of you should apply to many, many jobs and you should be going for quantity, but you should be doing quantity that has some remote chance of being able to pass and go through that, So being like a UX designer and applying to a full stack development job with no overlap, that your resume doesn't even say that is a big problem to go through. So really, you have to have something interesting. And this goes as well for people who have, when you're talking to hiring managers and people that are there. Again, when a hiring manager is talking to you and they're hiring for something, there's a very specific set of things they're looking for there. Maybe they don't say that they're hiring for like a DevOps engineer to go through, but it's kind of like, okay, somebody deals with Kubernetes or they deal with cloud or things like that. Like I look for SREs. So like cloud, Kubernetes, CI/CD, release engineering, reliability engineering. These are things that if I hear, I go, interesting, you've caught my attention. But if I'm hiring for that position and you're going on and on about your full stack development, I will listen to you. And honestly, just because of who I am and the direction I go through there, I want to help you out. I'm a mentor. I love doing this sort of stuff. So I'm going to help you specifically. But that's from a mentorship perspective. The hiring manager in me is just not interested. You haven't caught my attention. Not because I don't like you or I don't have I have a problem with you, but simply because of the fact that I don't know what to do with you. I don't have that. So if you're going to be doing there, you need to be in the right place. Don't just apply your resume anywhere. Do quantity, but do it in a place where you're applying to something that you have a chance to get to and your resume lines up. That's the first thing. Second thing, what you want to make sure you don't do. Don't just go ahead randomly messaging people in the business on LinkedIn or emails or whatever and saying you need a job. People don't get this, but you're a salesperson when you're trying to get people to hire you. We've tried to put it in a place where, people like to think of it as, oh, I'm not just a salesperson. I have something valuable to go through and do that. But it's kind of the equivalent of a door-to-door salesperson, imagine you open up your door and all of a sudden somebody's asking you, I live in the suburbs, so I get sold bug spray, infestation, sometimes, somebody's trying to sell some lawn care service or something like that. And when somebody comes door to door to sell that, you get this ickiness in you, right? that you go through and go, I don't want to be here. I'm not interested. And they're using all the persuasion sales techniques to draw you into this. You don't want to be rude or, to do that, but like you do that. That's an awful feeling, right? When you go to a hiring manager or you go to a person inside the company and say, I'm looking to apply to a job, exact same dynamic, exactly the same dynamic. You're selling yourself, your skills, and you're asking them to go do that. And you're expecting them to basically say yes. So it's like, if I'm doing that, like I may be nice, and especially if developers, they don't like conflict generally, but they might go and say, well, I'd like to help you. Maybe you can talk to this person, or maybe you can do this. But they're trying to get out of that situation. They don't want to talk to you. Like the only reason why somebody internal to a company might go and talk to you is really that you're in their field, you have a reason to connect with them, and you're not trying to sell them immediately on there. Unless there's like a specific reason, like, look, right now I am looking for SREs for my teams. So if you come to RTP and say, I am a DevOps engineer, I'm not sure if I have the background, but I see your team is hiring, that's a connection. That's okay. So it's like, oh, you are? Well, we are kind of looking for somebody here. Let me let you talk to my manager, whatever, you're engaged in them. But if you go to like, I don't know, our random UX designer you happen to connect to and say, oh, I'm looking for a full stack developer, position, I want to talk to you, they're not going to like that. So you should be strategic with who you are connecting with and going through. And if you want to connect randomly, for example, that's not to say don't connect randomly. I'm saying don't connect randomly and then go immediately into sell mode. That's almost always going to be a failure. And then I guess the final piece of advice here, to go through, and I guess I covered this originally, was that apply to any random job internally. That's generally not good there, but I think I covered that the first time. So those are 2 to 3 concepts that, if your resume doesn't look like it applies, if you're just applying to jobs randomly and you're messaging random people and trying to sell yourself, that's not going to get you noticed. So what is the sort of thing that will get someone's attention? And those first 3 things are definitely no-goes, generally speaking. You might get lucky, but it's generally bad. But these are things that I found to be worked. 1, you have a background in your resume that's interesting and compelling enough that I want to have a chat with you. Like those are things that if you apply to a job, and maybe you don't have the effectively the right background, but you're interesting. You say enough of the stuff to say, I have this deep background here, but like maybe you're a system administrator, or maybe you're applying to an AI role, but you have a deep data analytics background and you have an interest in moving to AI. You're basically wanting to get someone to look at that and go, interesting. I don't know if they're a fit, but you have enough of interesting background that we want to go talk to you, right? And being able to pull in. People will have discussions just to go do that. So 1, you have to have something compelling and interesting about what you're doing there. And that's going to be specific to the role. Clearly anyone who fits the role perfectly and you match up the right keywords. So if a role says, we need Kubernetes and SRE, or we need CI/CD, and you say, I have a background in Kubernetes and CI/CD and whatever, I'm going to talk to you, right? Your resume needs to support that. Like you can't say that in the skills and then have no experience, talking about that. But you should have something interesting, you should fill that and then have some other interesting ideas to go through there. I've had people apply to go through that, and that works. So that's one reason how you're going to get somebody's attention. Next, you're going to say, I would say you want to find the right people inside of the department, you go through there. So if you see a job and you know what department it comes from, you want to find the hiring manager, find people in that department, and contact them directly for informational interviews. So this is very different than selling yourself for a role. Actually, I just had someone do this to me where, it's not even for a role that I'm hiring for, but I know peers in my organization who are. And this person said, hey, and I can't remember the name of the person. I have this background. I came from a boot camp. Would you have 15 to 20 minutes for an informational interview? And it's like, yes, that'd be great. You want to come in and ask me questions. And again, I know this person's goal is ultimately to get a job, but they're not saying, Brian, give me a job, which is what a lot of, people networking do. But instead they're saying, I want to do an informational interview. I want to study that. And more important, they're trying to learn about the position. That grabs my attention, at least right now. Now, if I get flooded with a million of these, I may not, but generally speaking, most managers don't. You'd be surprised at how infrequently people get direct messages, or direct emails related to hiring and people in the market. It's definitely worth an attempt at this point there. Maybe At some point it gets overplayed, but right now that's not the case. So going in and asking for an informational interview, and just even saying you're interested in getting hired, but just also say, I'm not doing that to you. I just want information from you. Do you have, this time? Makes it a lot easier to say yes to. That would get my attention. When you go in and there's often recruitment events, and and that's the focus. And often at those recruitment events, you get flooded with resumes. That's a really hard way to get somebody's attention. However, there's some places where, people, like people in a department will go out, and this is recruitment. So you're trying to get lots and lots of resumes to go through. But then there are other times where that department's trying to sell something, like, like IBM will do networking events just because they want to meet people, or there's a new product they're selling, and there's something else there. And that is a very attentive sort of environment. Like when you are in a position where when the company is going out and trying to sell, they'll start to have random discussions. They'll talk with people, anyone they think is useful, because they know, in the same way for you, where I recommend you need to have a quantity strategy. When it's on the other side and the company's trying to sell something, you need to have a quantity strategy. So if you see that IBM is hosting an event, that people are there and that they're trying to sell something, or it's just a networking event or whatever, and it's not specifically about recruitment or sales, but you're doing that, that's a great place to go and meet people. If it's virtual, you can go and find names of people, reach out to them directly and do the informational interview strategy. If you're in person, you can go shake hands and say, oh, I'm a developer, and go through that. And by the way, if I'm not specifically thinking, no one's going to turn you down. If you say you're a developer and you've caught people's attention, it's generally a hard skill set to find. So anytime someone meets a network, at a networking event, they meet a developer, they usually like to keep them part of their wider network. So that's generally a good thing. But then you're looking for reasons to connect on interest. I've talked about this before with networking and how to make a cold opening. Find a way for you to connect. Oh, you're IBM, you're looking for developers. I'm a developer. I don't know if I'm selling anything right now, but we might talk there. We may have something we can go through. That's a good way to get somebody's connection. So using those major events, conferences, virtual events to go through, to find people internally to go through and connect with, is a really great way to go through and do that. I know I held a recruiting event last week. I've connected with everyone who ended up coming into me on LinkedIn. They sent messages. That's how a lot of this content got out there. Or I get, this happened 2 weeks ago now. I've connected with pretty much everyone who connected with me, to go through. So that's a great way to get somebody's attention. And if you have the right resume, if you have the right key skills that make you interesting, that'll go through the next level. And then finally, a great way to get people's attention is to just seem generally attractive. And one great way to do that is to really post on social network about your work, or GitHub or LinkedIn or whatever, and just kind of show you don't really need anyone. You're kind of going down your route. You're doing what you need to go through here. So it's a really attractive quality when, like, you see a full stack developer and they're just posting on LinkedIn where it's like, hey, here's an application I built, and here's what it does. Here's a feature I recently built. Here's a live stream of me doing a bug fix to go through, and I'm doing that there. And if you have a strategy there to connect with, hiring managers, people in your network, they'll be a part of that. They'll go and see that. People scroll on LinkedIn, they go on Facebook, they go on these different sites. And even though you may not think you're getting a lot of, interaction, even if you have 0 comments, 0 likes, 0 reviews, people still watch it. People still see that. And when they see you, when they see you doing your own thing and then see your resume come through, that's a really big impact, man. That is awesome. Where it's like, oh, I know you from, my LinkedIn feed. I see you're doing videos. They look really professional to go through. I mean, actually, one guy internally, it's actually started Christian. He started this group called IBM Gaming, where he wants to get IBM into, the gaming industry and go through. He posted on LinkedIn as just a really slick looking, video where he's talking about his time playing, I think it was Warzone or Battlefield or whatever. I saw him. I went, that's really cool. And then I ended up reaching out to him and connecting because of how cool that was. So he got my attention. Is it going to lead to something big? I don't know. That's not how networking works. Instead, both of our networks grew. And now if something comes up where I can help him, he's a part of that. So making yourself naturally attractive in this manner by allowing people to see what you're doing, and basically then going and saying, hey, I'm on my own. I may apply to your thing, but I don't need you. I got my own thing, is really useful. That will grab people's attentions, even in big organizations, to go through. So those are at least the pieces of advice that come to the top of my head, Michael, when I think about that to go through. The first thing I would recommend is don't do the things that won't get you noticed, right? Apply to the right jobs, understand, talk to relevant people in the organization, and don't sell yourself on the job, like that. You don't want to be the door-to-door salesperson. And you also want to make sure that you're talking to, strategically the right people. Make sure you don't, you're in the right place to begin with. But then you can use some of these extra things to try to get a little bit more interest, have an interesting background for the role that you do there. Leave good questions where somebody wants to really talk to you about your resume. That's a good place to be in. Connect with hiring managers, connect with people doing jobs, get informational interviews. I love those to death. And not enough people do them, to do that. And you can do that with lots of people, even developers. That's a good way to get someone's attention. Attend events, go see them, network with people, talk about your development background. But again, don't sell, just go and network. That's a great way to get, people's attention. And then finally, post, get your digital marketing up to snuff. Just go and post your videos, your GitHub, and what you're doing, and make it look like I'm doing my own thing. Maybe IBM sees me, maybe they don't. I really don't care. I just do this because I enjoy that. That's really, really attractive. When you eventually apply and go through and say you're on the market, people will notice that and pick up on that. So anywho, Michael, thank you very much for the question. For everyone else, I hope this video was useful, and I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you very much.